Alrighty, so this is going to be a longer haircut. I started out by wetting his hair down. Again, when you wet their hair down, you're going to get more of an equal length haircut all the way around. You need to make sure that it's nice and wet all throughout and there aren't any dry pieces, because that can affect how the haircut's length is throughout. Alrighty, so what we're going to start out with is we're going to be cutting the length because it is a longer haircut. We're just going to be using our scissors and our comb. Alrighty, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut the neckline first. So I think I'm going to be cutting probably about an inch off. So I'll be coming up here to cut it. So what you're going to do is you're just going to comb it, and you're going to use this back section of the comb to kind of push it sleek up against their neck, and then you'll cut. And you'll do that all the way around. With this, just be careful. Some people do have rolls in their neck where their neck is just has a little bit more meat on it. Just be careful when you're cutting that you don't cut their neck, and make sure that when you do cut at this point, their head is down a little bit so that it's pulling the skin tight. That'll alleviate any worry about cutting their neck. So we're gonna do that all the way around, and it's not perfect. Towards the end, I am going to come through with the clipper, the peanut clipper, just to clean it up better. So don't worry about that. Right now, we're just worrying about taking off the right amount of length. This is going to be our guide as we're doing the rest of the haircut. So we're going to be taking off an inch all the way around the haircut. So then we're going to come over here and we're going to comb this down. And we're just going to cut upwards. This is something that you need to be careful with as well, because one, we're coming at a little bit of an angle, so you don't want to nip them with the edge of the shears. And we're also getting close to the ear where there's a lot of tucks and folds that you might not be able to see. So be careful with that. And then just make sure as you're cutting, make sure that you know where you're cutting before you cut, so that you don't cut his ear. We're going to come down that a little bit. And I know it might seem that I'm cutting blind, but I've done this for a little bit, so I kind of know where Ben's ear is and where it stops. But as you get used to who you're cutting for, it'll be the same, where you'll kind of just know. Alright, so we're going to continue doing that. Cutting around. Alright, so there's that side, about an inch off. It's okay that it's touching. I'm going to cut off a little bit though, if you can kind of see that little triangular thing there. Triangular point of the hair where it's a little bit longer. So there's that side. I'm going to spin around and do the other side, just so that you can kind of see the angles that I come in. Have you tilt your head up and move it that way. So we're going to do the same thing, but instead of going up like I was doing, because I'm right-handed, I'm going to be going down. Again, just be really careful that you're not cutting them. If you kind of notice how I had him hold his head, I'm having him hold it that way just so that right through here is a little bit tighter. And just making sure that you're cutting around the ear, just holding the ear down a little bit so you can cut them. Alrighty, so there's that. We cut 1 inch off. So this is what we're going to be using as our guide. In our next little session, we're going to be cutting through the rest of the hair. So stay tuned. Alright, so now in the last session, we just cut about 1 inch off the circumference of the hairline. So that is what we're going to be using as our guide. So we're going to come through here and we're going to take little pie sections and we're going to come forward, and you're going to kind of be able to see down here, there's the length that we cut off. I'm going to tilt him a little bit just so that you guys can see a little bit better. So this is the length that we cut off, and then this is the inch that we're going to need to cut off, and we're going to cut that. I'm going to tilt back a little bit now just so that I don't cut myself. It's kind of a weird angle. And what we're going to do is we're going to do that again all the way up. Just in this little section here. And then I mentioned it before, but be careful when you're cutting around your knuckles and up towards the middle part of your finger so you don't cut yourself. So there's that section. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of part it to the side. So then now that we have that inch off through here, we also now have it through the rest of the haircut, or through the rest of this section here. So we part it, and now we're going to use that as our guide. So we'll just come over here again, and we're going to go through another pie section, and then just hold it out, and we'll cut off that inch. And we'll do that again all the way up to the top of his head. We're going to keep doing that around to just behind the ear. And then we'll do it again on the other side. So I'm going to bring him around a little bit. And on this side you might be able to see a little bit more of what I'm doing just at the angle that I have them. And you can also kind of see the guide that I have as well. So something else that you can kind of notice is as I'm cutting his hair, I'm pulling it straight off of his head. So I'm not coming at weird angles, pulling it from either side or pulling it up or pulling it down. I'm cutting straight off of his head. And that is giving it a nice blended look. Alright, so there's the back of his head. You can kind of pull it up and you can kind of just see how it's all kind of laying nicely through there. Alright, so the next section that we're going to be covering are the sides and the top. It's going to be a little bit different, so stay tuned for that. So the top and the sides are a little bit different. What I'm going to be doing at this first part of the top and the side haircut, I'm going to be creating a mohawk section right here. So I'm just going to create just 2 parts on either side of his head, just above his eyes. Or that's what you can use as an angle when you're cutting hair, just above the person's eyes. So what you're going to do is after creating that mohawk section, you're going to pull everything up right here. And you're going to be using the hair that you've cut already as a guide. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull this up. So this is where I cut before, and so this all is gonna be cutting, I'm gonna be cutting it off. And then also realize I am moving with the curve of his head. So I'm coming straight off of his head, but I'm also kind of moving at a curve towards the front of his face. Alright, so I'm going to kind of switch myself. I'm not sure if you guys saw all of that. I think my arm was in the way, but I'm going to switch it. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull everything up like that, and then you're just going to cut it off. And don't worry, there were a couple spots that I missed, so I'm not like recutting his hair so you guys can see it. So you're going to be just cutting it off. You're pulling the hair straight up off of his head. But you are kind of going at an angle because his head's not flat. You're going at a little bit of an angle, but you're still pulling it straight off of that circular shape. So that's going to be creating a little bit of shortness through here, but it's getting longer as you go forward. Alright, so now that I've done that, I've cut my guide through there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using that guide. I'm going to part straight down the middle. And I'm going to be pushing this hair that I've cut the guide into to the sides. So I put all the hair that I cut the guide into and I pushed it to the sides. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to try to angle myself so that you guys can see it. I'll probably stand back here again. We're going to be starting down here above his ear. We're going to be pulling straight up, straight off the side of his head, and we'll cut that. So that was about 1/2 inch. And then we're just going to keep doing that to the shape of his head until we reach the shortest spot at my guide. And then we'll just keep moving forward on his head until we reach the front. So again, I'm just pulling it straight up off of his head. I'm not pulling it towards me. I'm not pushing it away from me. I'm not pulling it down. I'm just pulling it straight off of his head. So it is kind of going at a little bit of an angle. If you see, it's kind of going like this. That's kind of how you want it because we want through here to be a little bit shorter and we want the top to be a little bit longer. Alright, and I'm actually going to leave the bangs out just because that's a little bit different of a story when you're cutting the bangs. You don't want to cut it so short. So there's that side. I'm going to move on to the other side. I'm not sure how to angle myself though. You know what, I think I'm going to spin it so that you can see the back of his head a little bit and I'm going to come forward. There'll be a lot of angles of how to cut this hair. So again, we're just taking pie sections and just cutting. It's okay to move the hair around too, just to see how it's falling as well. It doesn't have to be just perfectly straight where you need it to lay. Hairs that decided to grow a little bit longer than the rest of the haircut too, which is okay. And don't worry, as long as you're following your guide, you're not going to be cutting too much off of their hair. Just make sure that you match up your guide so I can see that. I'm kind of just pulling the hair out of the way and I'm matching it to the guide. Alright, so there's the top for you guys. You can kind of see how it's a little bit shorter through here and then it comes down longer through here. We don't want to cut bangs all the way up here. So what we're going to do through here is I'm actually going to pull it forward. And I think I'm going to have to turn so that you guys can see what I want you to. I'm going to pull it straight off of his head and then I'm going to cut off right here. So this is the length that I want it to be and this is where I'm cutting it off. Or what I'm cutting off. All right, and then with the haircut that I did last time, the gentleman's cut, I said that if you pull the hair back, it's gonna leave length. With this, it's a little bit layered. So what I'm doing here is the angle that I'm holding it at, I'm cutting off the length, but I'm also adding layers into the haircut so that it's not just a straight solid bang. So there's a little bit of hair over here that's a little bit longer, so I missed some. I'm gonna get that really quick. Alright, so there's the top and the side blending. I'm also going to be cutting just a little bit through here just to kind of blend the side hairs here with the front of his bangs. Alrighty, so there's that. It's all nice and blended. So the next little session that we're going to be doing is we're just going to be finishing up the haircut, making sure everything's nice and even, and then we will finish up the neckline. So stay tuned. Alrighty, so for this last step of the haircut, because it's a little bit longer of a haircut, it's easy to kind of allow the hair not to be the same length, if that makes sense. It's a little bit more forgiving than if I was doing a clipper cut. So what you're going to do to make sure that everything is the same length and falling even is you're going to come through here through this crown section. This is what this would be. You're going to come through here and you're going to pull everything up. And as you can see, it's not even. So what you're going to do is you're just going to pull it all straight up. So these points here are even. And so this is going to need to come off. So I'll just snip that a little bit. And then you'll just keep doing that straight through the haircut. Just pulling it in that little mohawk section straight up. And it's kind of just a little bit of like a point at the middle. So that needs to come off. And that's actually pretty good. And then we'll kind of shift a little bit and move to this side a little bit, where I'm pulling it straight up off of this curve on his head. So it's pretty good. So that's gonna come off. As you can see, that was a big miss. So we're gonna cut that off. And then we'll come back over here and we'll do the same thing over here. Alrighty. So that's how you can kind of make sure that everything is even and looks good. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do the neckline. So we'll take the clippers, and I'll turn it just a little bit towards me, and we'll just kind of lightly clean up that neckline. So with this, I'm not cutting into the hair that I've already cut. I'm just cleaning up the little hairs that I couldn't get with my scissors. And I'm gonna do the same on the side here as well. I can comb it out just a little bit, just so that it's a little bit more of a defined line of where I need to cut. And I can also, through here, I am gonna straighten it up a little bit just because it's not super even. Again, you can go on the side for little harder spots to get. And just put your hair for me. Alrighty, so there you have it, guys. This is a long haircut. I used a comb, I used scissors, and I used my little peanut, and there you have it.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe.